Here we go.
Iain Dunn's here.
Hello, welcome to episode 71 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Back once again after Town's 0-0 draw against Sheffield Wednesday, needing some geniuses with calculus to work out the end of season permutations. Myself and Kosi have brought in Cowshed, a baritone, Dan, Luciano, Pozzarotti, Porritt, and Brady Frost. And I'm delighted as well to be welcomed by Huddersfield Town legend and currently
he's in York Station. Are you in York Station, Dunn?
Yeah. On the left.
I knew you were. I could tell with architecture what a sad gate I am.
Are you in York
Train
Station?
spotter.
I am in York Station.
What are you doing?
How you
York, mate?
What
Signing
have we done now?
autographs.
We've
Signing
done
autographs.
7.5 miles. We've done 7.5 miles. We've walked from a suburb of York into the centre, and we literally, it got to 8 o'clock, and I said to my friend, I've got my Zoom meeting, I've got to sign in. And we're literally walking past the noisiest, we've been walking through fields, we've been at one with nature, and here we are in York Station. Can you believe that?
Well, basically, you've done a pub crawl through York, Dunn, and now you've had enough because it's 8 o'clock. You can't take your beer. That's what you're trying to say, innit?
Pretty much spot on, to be honest.
We're going to say how many pints deep are we? So Dunny, we've got you for a short while, haven't we? So we'll fire in with you. So what have you? Firstly, you did a Radio Leeds broadcast with Oggy. I think you were there for the Preston game. And
Yeah.
How did you find the stadium? Do you know how eerie it was, maybe with how empty it was and how different everything was? Because obviously, as fans, we can't see what's going on behind. But just let us know how different it was as an experience for someone who's co-commentating.
To be brutally honest, when you're on the radio, you know you want to make it sound exciting, and it was hard work. I think if you spoke to Oggy, he'd say the same thing. It's not the same with that. It's a cliche, but football is made by the fans. It really is, and I think if ever there's been a period of time where we've realised that, it's now. I think people always appreciate the fans. I certainly do as a player. They get something else out of you when they're on your side, and I just felt. It was lacking in something, and the fans give you that extra, whatever percentage that is. They give you that extra bit when they're on your side, and I felt during that game it was a little bit. It felt slow. It felt as if there wasn't. The players would tell you differently because they're working the socks off to try and save Town, most of them, and I just think it felt a bit devoid of atmosphere. That's how I would describe it. Devoid of atmosphere that you need to just get that extra bit to get you across the line. The game was so. It was a tactical game where the manager clearly wanted to get a point, thinking that Luton coming up, that would get you to the Holy Grail, or, in many seasons, the Holy Grail. It just wasn't the same. That ultimately, it wasn't the same.
Do you think that's maybe why we're seeing a lack of goals at home? So we've not scored since February 29th. So we've not scored since lockdown, since we've started again after lockdown. Do you think maybe the lack of crowd and the atmosphere in the ground and maybe the players out of their comfort zone has kind of contributed to what we've seen? Obviously, the game against Luton was a really poor one as well. And at Sheffield Wednesday, the first sort of 20 minutes last night, we played with a lot more freedom. We're on the attack a lot more. Whereas against Preston, and Preston, as you say, was a tactical game, but against maybe Luton after that, it seemed a little bit more of a fear factor that came in. Do you think that's maybe affected the players as well, and especially mentally?
That's a really difficult conversation because you don't know what motivates the players. I mean, the motivation should be to stay up. They need the points to stay up. The manager has given them a certain direction that I maintain it. Me and Kosi spoke on Radio Leeds, as he said, that the manager had a vision that he'll get a point against Reading. He's got his point against Preston and beat Luton. That it didn't materialise that way. We maybe didn't reckon on Luton coming for the 3 points as well. And it's changed everything a little bit. Time's running out for the other teams around us. But the players' motivation must be to stay in that league. The manager's given them a certain direction, a certain challenge, I would imagine, to get a certain amount of points. I think Luton was not a step back. I don't think they expected to lose to Luton. I think they expected to beat Luton, and it didn't materialise. So now we're in the mire a little bit. It's still in their own hands, don't get me wrong. And a good point last night, but other teams around them are winning. Look at Middlesbrough, Luton. It's going to be tough.
Middlesbrough, you would probably say are safe now. 50 points is probably safe. So Town, Town sit a couple behind. 2 games coming up, 2 tough games as well, because we've got West Brom at home. West Brom, second, automatic promotion still not assured. I watched West Brom I think it was yesterday, and they looked a little bit ponderous at times, a little bit nervous as well. So maybe that's something we can take advantage of. But the last game of the season, I was gutted when Millwall beat Blackburn 1-0, because that's put Millwall firmly in that top 6 hunt now. So they're probably going to be going for that on the last game of the season. And that, again, is going to be difficult. So it's not too hard to envisage a situation whereby Town might not get another point this season. The 2 games are very difficult. We're very capable of doing so, but, we've got to be prepared for that. How do you see maybe this... How do you maybe see this transpiring and the season going? Obviously, I think most of us cling to the hope that we'll stay up. I think we'll just about sneak up. Wigan's 12 points is a sad day for football, but it might be necessary in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely, I popped on Twitter last night, and it couldn't be tighter down there. It couldn't be tighter. Games are running out for teams around Town, which is, I know this sounds quite sad, doesn't it? But we're kind of relying on other teams not getting the results that they need. It is still in Town's hands. Would you take 2 draws to get 50 points? Is 50 points going to be enough? I haven't looked at the table today. I haven't seen the results tonight, obviously. Is 50 points enough?
Charlton, I believe, Kosi, Birmingham got a last-minute equaliser against Charlton.
Good.
I think it's finished.
Here we go.
Oof.
Here we go. Oh, my word. This is clever.
It is, but he's put himself on mute so no one can hear him.
So it's all level.
There he goes.
I mean, Hull
I
look
think
destined for the drop.
Yeah, Hull and Luton, obviously, on Saturday, I've been kind of discussing with a few people. I think it's best if that's a draw, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree.
Then the last games of the season is Hull go to Cardiff, Luton play home to Blackburn, I think it is. Obviously, Wigan aren't factored in to this. If you take 12 off them, I'm good at maths, aren't I? So
they're on 45, yeah.
But you know what's going to happen tomorrow, don't you? You heard it here first. Barnsley are going to go to Ellen Road and win.
Nah, not going to happen. Not going to happen.
No.
I know you want it to happen. That ain't going to happen. Leeds are flying out there, let's be honest. But Town, 48, 3 points clear of Hull and Luton. Hull-Luton play on Saturday.
Yep, huge. But what about that last night? I watched that. I just thought I'd watch a bit of this old Wigan game, and it was incredible. They'd look like they're giving it up. I don't know if there's some problems or whether it can just be one of those things, because I think didn't Brentford beat Birmingham like 8 or something the other year, but it was incredible. It's going to be hard to lift them from that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, they'll be lower than a snake's belly right now. They will not fancy playing Luton, who, let's be fair, have had some decent results in the last few weeks. Hull won't fancy that. Let's assume Luton win it. They'll be on 48 points.
Who would have thought, though, that a minus 16 goal difference, because we never have a positive goal difference ever in the history of Huddersfield Town. That's a good advantage for us, isn't it, really? Because
it actually is
a mess.
Yeah. It could make the difference. It really could. It's amazing. Yeah. Looking at that table there, a point in each of the last 2 games would probably be enough, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. What did you watch the Luton game, Iain?
Sorry, Rick?
Did you watch the Luton Town game?
I didn't, mate. I didn't know.
Oh, you missed out on that. I mean, that was really, really bad. I mean, questions were kind of posed about, players' mentality. I mean, we see it be all right at stopping goals going in, but just anything going forwards, just kind of a waste of time, really. It's
I saw the highlight. There weren't many highlights to going on. To be fair,
No.
it was one of them games where. But Luton have somehow picking results out. You know, they're doing all right.
It is.
And Town maybe didn't. I didn't reckon on it. I honestly thought Danny Cowley had a plan in place that was coming to fruition, where get the points against the tough teams, your Prestons, and go into the Luton game thinking, hey, this game will save us, beat Luton, and we'll be saved. We didn't reckon on Luton being, half decent and getting the result. So,
Dunny, can I put some spin on it here? By the way, we're talking about a plan. Jamie Rayner has joined us, BBC legend. Jamie, we've just had the table up and we had the BBC one up as well, mate. We didn't want to let you down with Sky or anything like that. So can I put some spin on it here? Got my Alistair Campbell hat on. So 28th of September 2019, we'd played 9 games. We'd won none. We'd drawn 2. We'd lost 7. We'd have given anything to be in this position on the 28th of September 2019. Do you think that it's a bit of spin, or ultimately when we do get to next Wednesday and we are safe, let's be positive, it's been a good job done?
Is that to me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to where we were, where we are. I think the problem is because we've come back so flat from the COVID break. It's like I'm just trying to make it sound better maybe than what it is. But I just thought we were done there. Just as we come into October, we wouldn't start the next game. But would you given anything for where we are now? What way are as people shouting in between?
I think the official line from the camp, the team town, if you like, would have been, you'd have took this, wouldn't you? You're rooted in October. So have they improved? Yes. They've got out of a very sticky patch. And let's be brutally honest, if this time next week Town are still in the Championship, or this time in 2 weeks' time, whatever, you've got to look back and think, well, actually, they've done the job. They've done what they needed to do, because when they came in, Town were looking, for all the world, you just thought this is another Sunderland. This is another, this is going to be a problem. If they can stay up, and I've maintained this all along, if they can stay up, they then get the chance to go again next year with what you hope is going to be their idea of football. And I liked it. I liked Lincoln, the way they played that night at Huddersfield. They played really well. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't fluke. They were a good team. And they'd been good for the previous 12 months. They were a team on the up. The manager clearly has an idea of how he wants to play. He was thrown in to a Huddersfield Town team that, let's be honest, it was in decline. There was players there that didn't want to play. They were overpaid. They weren't playing well. They weren't playing like a team. Things were going wrong. So let's assume they stay up. Then you can ask the question, have they done well? And I think the answer would be yes. If they stay up, the answer is yes, because they've achieved what they had to achieve. At that time, they didn't look good. Then if they stay up, it looks decent. Next season's the time you start to judge them, because they've had the chance to build their own ethos, to get the players on board, get the players in that they want. Now isn't the time to judge. Now is the time to survive.
Jamie, bring you in. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Apologies for my lateness. Good to
Tell
be
me,
here.
Jamie.
Hello, Dunny.
You're right.
Very well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for being there. It's good. It's good to be here.
Jamie, what was it like getting back in a football stadium yesterday? Mecca's jealous, mate, because as bad as Town are, I'd love to be back in one.
I don't want to rub it in, but no, for my own benefit, it was brilliant. It was really good to just be in and amongst it, albeit on weird and strange circumstances. It was something very different, but actually once you'd got yourself set in a commentary position and all eyes were on the football, you actually forget that there aren't any fans in there because you're so fixated on what's happening on the pitch. And actually, I found myself taking more interest and concentrating more on what was happening on the pitch as opposed to looking at what the crowd are thinking and saying and feeling. And you can see more about the way in that game alone, how Town were set up and actually what their game plan was. So it was good, and it was also nice to see Matty and Oggy. Matty has somehow managed to find some hair from somewhere. I was absolutely shocked. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. When I first saw him, I didn't know who it was.
Transplant, maybe, yeah.
I think so. There's something going on there. He reckons he doesn't diet, but I beg to differ. So no, overall, it was good. It was good to be back. Thanks.
Brilliant. Pause. The game last night. Let's start reviewing it a little bit. Dunny, how long can you stay with us? By the way, you've got a tray to catch on another pub to get into, or what? What?
I mean, I've got another pub to get into,
Mate.
but,
Just finish off with a little there. Are we going to stay up, mate, before I let you go?
yeah, with a bit of luck. I think with a bit of luck, Kosi, I think Town have done enough, but I think we are looking over our shoulders at what other teams do, and that sounds negative, but I think it's the truth. We need other teams to fail.
Dunny, thanks for joining us, mate, and enjoy your pint or wherever you're going next.
Thank you very much. I must apologise, but it's me and my friend. Literally, that tonight was our night to come out. We're on 7.7. Is it 7.7? We're on a lot of mileage walk. We've done a few beers. We've had a laugh, and we've put the worlds to rights. We've sorted everything, and this has been the cream of the crop. So I hope you have a good night, and thank you very much for having me on in this very unorganised fashion.
Legend. Cheers.
Anytime, mate. Anytime. Thank you.
All the best, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care. Have a good night.
Yes. It's this where it goes.
He's still here.
For a beer.
I'm
Do you want
removing it.
to see a little bit of York? Because
Yeah, mate. Let's do it. Let's do this.
let's be honest. Someone, was it Kosi? You called it out, didn't you? He's at the station. No, I don't know if that's. And it's not to catch a train. There's one bar in York, and it's called the Tippy Bar, which my mate's got
a what bar?
TP.
Oh, okay.
Like a teepee. my best friend who I'm with is, and this is the first time we've been out in months, has got asthma, so he can't. He's being sensible about social distancing. So we've heard the teepee bar on a Wednesday night is absolutely dead. So we're literally finding the teepee bar, and I came on in line right next to the station. So I apologise for any noise. We were in a field 10 minutes ago, and now we're in the noisiest part of York. So apologies, but have a great night.
Cheers.
Here we go. There we go.
That's an interesting bar, man.
Do you want to see? I'm not being funny, but hold on, I'm going to have a jog here because I think this needs to be seen. Hold on.
Mate, it's coming off bench. It's like Bradford
like
away.
I wish.
It's like Bradford. It's Noel Blake there. Give him a book. Headbutt him, doesn't he?
That's what Noel Blake did. Knock my tooth out. I'll tell you what, don't argue with him. He's a tough lad. Look, right, do you want to see where I'm going to be for the next hour and a half?
Yeah, mate. Let's see it.
This doesn't look too bad.
Annika Rice move. Oh, wow. Look at that.
That looks decent.
Decent gear, man. Marquee.
Not bragging or anything, Dunny, there, right? It's a cracking little setup there.
I hope it doesn't rain, doesn't it?
It's not that I'm overtly proud of my home city, but...
Yeah, man, that is quality. Thanks for joining us, mate. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Adios.
Cheers, Dunny.
I don't know what to say there.
How do I follow that now? I mean, I got to go in my garden to show you everyone.
Also, what did you think of the game last night? Let's throw it out there, man.
I mean, it wasn't as we've sort of come back from lockdown. It's not been the best, has it? So if you put it in comparison to what we've sort of seen in a couple of games since we've come back, I won't class it as a bad performance. I mean, it wasn't great. But we look good in spells, sort of 20 minutes here and there. To me, though, we never really looked fully convincing going forward. A couple of chances in the second half. Campbell should have probably scored when we put it in top tier from about 6 yards out. But Wednesday for me, they always seem to have us at arm's length. Good save from Lossell in first half, and I thought Wednesday's just edged the chances. In second half, they made a couple of subs about halfway through the second half, and it kind of changed game for them a little bit. They brought on, I can't remember, De La Cruz, was that his name that came on?
Yeah.
Mixed things up for him a little bit, and we were one of them that it were probably always going to end 0-0. They didn't seem too concerned about going for a win, and I think similar to what happened at Reading, we got to a certain point in game, and I think QPR equalised. They were playing one of the teams down there. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But once that went to 1-1, it almost seemed that we were happy to then take a point, and we it's another game down without losing any ground on anybody. And I don't know. I think you mentioned earlier on Twitter, Kosi, about us lack of goals going forward. I don't think the formation that we play, it seems to be 4-2-3.
Pause, I've got some stats. 6 out of the last 8. Duck eggs, man. No goals.
I think we're just so slow going forward. I don't think the formation suits the players that we've got. If it were me for the next couple of games, I'd be maybe looking to mix it up a little bit, maybe just go back to standard 4-4-2. Mounier up front with maybe Grant or Campbell around him, and just kind of maybe bypassing midfield a little bit more, go a little bit more direct, and just try and get it into, especially against West Brom, get it into their, edge of their 18-yard box, have a look round, see if we can, fight for some scraps. We don't seem inventive enough. There's probably only really Emile Smith-Rowe that's got out about him. He'll pick ball up on half-turn and run. And apart from that, daft it seems, probably Harry Toffolo's only sort of outlet to run with it. Chris Willock, he does all right. I want right wing when he gets it. He's not the best, maybe a little bit harsh because he's only young. He's obviously still learning. Kachunga, as always, very industrial. He puts a shift in, but again, he's not going to take a couple of players on and bend one in top corner from 20 yards. So overall, last night I turned it off, and I wasn't angry that we'd played bad. I wasn't happy we'd played well. Results kind of fell for us. Luckily, Birmingham got a goal in 90th minute tonight, which has stopped Charlton, getting a win and going above us. So, bigger picture, you'd say it were a point gained, really. We've gone another game without losing any ground on anybody. So, in that respect, I think you've got to, if you are looking on the positives, that's your positive. If you're looking towards be a little bit more negative, then you can say it's another game without a goal. We didn't really create a right lot. Very boring to watch again. But I get the impression that Cowley were given a remit at the start of the season to keep us up, and he's doing whatever he can to have us stumble across the line and get there. It's not great to watch, but if it's a means to an end, do we just have to accept it?
Yeah. Jamie, did you do the pre-match press conference with Danny Cowley on, would it be Monday?
Yes.
How wounded was he from the Luton? Because there was so much flack flying about. I hope he didn't watch this, by the way, on Friday night, because we were quite measured, to be fair. But how wounded was he? How wounded was he? And kind of what you saw last night, was it always going to be that way, that we'd kind of set up not to lose and pretty much part the bus, really?
I think firstly, there was a definite acceptance of the criticism that had come both his way and the players' way as well. And, like yourselves on this podcast and like during our post-match as well on Friday evening, it was pretty clear to see and hear that, Town fans weren't happy with how they'd performed. And rightly so as well. It was a pretty disastrous performance against the side that they should have been getting 3 points from when you look at the remaining games at that point. He was pretty accepting of that criticism. I think he's always been pretty accepting of criticism whenever it's come his way throughout the season. And it was, I guess, disappointing from his perspective that his players hadn't tactically, as he said, followed the plan that he'd laid out with Nicky ahead of that Luton game. And that's where they fell down against, as I said, a side that they should have been looking to get 3 points against. So I think there was certainly a response from maybe some of the criticism that was put their way in last night's performance. I think that there were players running for balls this time. There was tackles coming in. There was players offering themselves, particularly in the first half. And actually, we said at half time that we felt it was a tale of two halves in that first half, because actually the drinks break probably came at the wrong time for Huddersfield Town, because they actually had quite a bit of momentum to start that game, and they looked good. They looked good. They looked like they had shape, and it looked as if Hogg and O'Brien, particularly O'Brien, who'd been given a bit more license to move up the field, was getting on the ball. And I thought O'Brien had a good game last night, actually, from my own perspective. But I think you made the point earlier about Cowley being given a remit, and it does feel as if, as long as Town stay up, then he's been successful this season with Huddersfield Town. And if Huddersfield Town stay in the Championship, which I hope they do, that I do believe, and others might disagree with me, that he is the right person moving forward. And I guess that's the big question, because once he's got a full summer, Now we know the transfer window times as well, which has come out today. I think, and I believe he is the person to hopefully evolve and elevate Town from what's been a pretty dark 2 years, really, hasn't it?
Brady, what about that save from Jonas Lossell? I tell you what it reminded me of. I bet you're going to know anyway. What did that save remind you of? It was Stamford Bridge, mate. Won it all over again.
Yeah, it was quality. It reminded me of the Town actually did it, but the one against Arsenal as well. Quality. I mean, fair play to Lossell. I don't think he played that well in the Luton game, but he more than made up for it. I mean, also the save from Dela Cruz. I know it was offside, but it didn't look like it at the time. I think. I think touching on Cowley, I think it is. You can't. The Luton game was disappointing, and take nothing away from that. I'm not going to stick up for that. But the issue with these players, and I was saying it watching the game last night, it's just down to the mentality. And I know Phil's talked before about having a psychologist in and sports psychologist but again. With the players we have, we shouldn't be in the position we're in. And when the Cowleys came, we were like Dunny said, going to do a Sunderland, and it did look bad. And I think they're looking at the squad and looking, at what we've got. We've struggled to score goals for 2-3 years now, and I think the Cowleys' tactics are we'll try and go for it. And if it gets to like 20 minutes and we're not breaking through, it's almost like. We're just happy to not lose, and I think it is going to be one of them where we seem to just be playing not to lose at the moment. Like yesterday, we just didn't really seem to get in any rhythm. I thought we had good spells, but I think we've been a bit unfortunate, really, in some respects, because we're playing teams who have nothing to play for, and yes, you're like, oh, well, we should beat them, but they can put less energy in just having people behind the ball and not really doing much. And I've certainly found that I thought with the Reading game and the Wednesday game, to be honest, it was almost like they're not that bothered, so it's just easier to defend than particularly counter. What I'd give to play Hull, I'll keep it up. Good form.
I fancy my old Sunday team against Hull at the minute, to be honest, Brady. I'll tell you that.
Oh, absolutely.
Brady, before I ask Matt about Fraser Campbell's miss, because I know last night.
Oh, not me. Yeah.
So there must be some comments coming in, especially on Dunny's pub crawl. if not the game.
Do you know what? I think we should have that every week. Jamie sat there with his lovely branding of BBC Radio Leeds behind him and his BBC Radio.
He won't
Leeds
remember Annika Rice. He's only a young boy. It's Jamie.
I know. If you watch Challenge TV,
stop the clock.
She on Challenge TV or something. She was on something lately.
He would never say when Annabelle Croft took over. Matt, read some comments out, mate.
Yeah. So thanks for everybody who's joined us on the live stream. There's around 50 people or so watching and listening at the moment. So we'll get into some of your comments. So I've asked you about what you thought of the Sheffield Wednesday game and our chances of survival. Tom Asquith says that we could have done with 3 points against Sheffield Wednesday, and survival is going to be last day's stuff. Jared Mulligan makes a good point, guys. EFL's decision on Sheffield Wednesday is this week, apparently, and we could see some movement or lack of movement in points. I don't think
stop there. Jamie, were there anything coming out of Hillsborough last night? Any rumours? Or...
The latest we understand is that an announcement should be expected towards the end of this week, potentially the start of next week. And that was something that was reported by our colleague over in BBC Sport in Salford. What that means in terms of points deductions remains to be seen. That is the simple truth. There are numbers flying everywhere at this moment in time, but there is nothing concrete in place. And I think, you have to factor that into consideration, that we're talking about that. No doubt the Sheffield Wednesday players were talking about that before the game last night, and very well aware that every point matters at this moment in time. So, Huddersfield Town came up against the side knowing, like Wigan, that they need to get every point they can at this stage, because it could be curtains for them come the end of the season. So, it doesn't remain to be seen as to what those points are, but we understand that, an announcement is expected at some point, either at the end of this week, as I say, or the start of next week.
Did you get anything from their guys there, their media people? Sheffield, how are they feeling? They're feeling they're going to lose points or not really?
Do you know, honestly, I didn't actually see all that many of them, which was quite interesting. I expected to see more, and I wonder whether or not they were positioned elsewhere in the stadium because of safety protocols and social distancing. It's a weird one. You don't really interact with that many people once you're there because obviously you have to socially distance and try and keep your distance from other people.
It probably because of what Oggy did in the playoffs semi. Remember when he told us that tale? They were aiming for him, what they're
It was the best bit for me being at Hillsborough last night was I got to sit in the spot where Matty Glennon didn't realise what was happening. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago? So I got to sit in that seat and relive that to his he didn't enjoy that.
Tariq Holmes, Dennis with a jig of delight, man. Great days. Matt, any more comments?
Yeah, there's quite a few coming through. So Simon Lister says, echoes pretty much what you've said, Kosi. Says a lack of goals worries him massively. One shot on target again last night, but several blocked, which were heading that way. Tom Asquith says, I'd love Town to park the bus against West Brom. And Pete Collins says, Town will beat West Brom. No need to worry, lads. Up the Town. I love it. Freddie Cocker.
It would be like Town to do something like that.
yeah. Freddie Cocker says...
End up beating West Brom and handing Leeds the promotion.
Freddie Cocker says he's not confident about anything from West Brom or a point at Millwall. They might need to beat us for players. What he's baffled by is Cowley saying players are playing with fear. There's no fans. And a few others. So maybe that Lordy says maybe that Birmingham goal will just about save us. And there's some more coming through about rifts between the Cowley brothers, etc. And will the Cowley brothers be here? Which we'll probably talk about next week, I think. Ponty Terrace is out. We're getting the new kit Friday. The Town Foundation are wearing the current one, I believe. So the Town Foundation is sponsoring, well, not sponsoring, but we're wearing the Town Foundation kit. The same kit with Town Foundation across it, I should say. And then that will be raffled off and all proceeds will go to the Town Foundation, which is great, really, for the foundation and for everybody that benefits.
Cheers, Matt. Pozz, I always think your first judgment is your best judgment. And that Fraser Campbell last night, I just sunk in myself. I thought, that is a shocking miss. And you get it all the time, we're behind him, this, that, and other. I watched the replay and it looked an even more of a shocking miss. But a couple of people I speak to said, we're coming at pace. Sorry, mate. That's a big goal every day of the week.
Yeah, I must admit, on first viewing, it did sort of look a little bit behind him. But, as you say, I've watched it back a couple of times myself. And the more I watch it, the more I think I was missed it. It's one of them, innit? Yeah, it's a bad miss. All strikers miss chances like that. He'd not long been on pitch. It was possibly his first and only touch, actually. To be fair, after he'd come on, I didn't sort of really notice him doing a right lot. But again, when you're playing as a lone striker, if ball's not played into you, what can you really do? Apart from chasing defenders down, looking for the ball, he's not a lone target man for me anyway, Campbell, to be fair. He's one of them little go up top with someone, which is why I think if he goes up front with Mounier and we knock balls in, we'll be a little bit more successful. You've got Mounier that can, push and shove defenders around. If ball drops, Campbell's going to be there to sweep it up, or even if it drops to an opposition player, he's going to be in and around. Sometimes mischanneled aggression. He puts a few stupid tackles in when really he don't really need to. But sometimes I think that boils down to frustration. If he's up there by himself, not doing the right lot, it's frustrating for strikers, and he does tend to lash out. It's a bit of a strange mentality at the moment because it is that close to end of the season. We were chatting before. We've played this way now pretty much all season. You can't see it changing, but sometimes a dramatic change can also throw out your opposition if they've scouted us a little bit. They've seen what we can and can't do over the past. Since lockdown, you'd say if you were playing against Town, let's get it wide, let's put set pieces in. They're not right good at defending them. If you saw all of a sudden come out and play in a totally different way, you might just surprise them. Certainly, West Brom and Millwall, get out and get at them and mix it up a little bit.
Pozz, what are your mates kind of thinking about Huddersfield Town at the moment? Because we get within a relegation battle, we get religions one season, but I'm meeting so many people and I'm feeling it the same. I'm bored. I'm bored, man, of watching this.
It's a really strange situation to be in because usually in a relegation battle, I think I mentioned it before, everyone seems to be in it together. It's like, come on, let's all rally round and we all put us 100% effort in and crowd get behind them and with no fans there, you seem a little bit I know it sounds a bit silly, but you almost feel a bit like one of these Liverpool fans or Man U fans that never actually go, and you just kind of watch it on telly, and as soon as it's finished, you turn it off. You're not as invested as what you once, as what you once were. It's so much easier to criticise and this were crap, or that were good, or I don't know. I think if everybody were there together, it might feel a little bit different. But I just think at the moment everyone's a little bit, certainly people who I talk to. And me personally, I'll openly admit, I didn't think that I were as bothered as what I was. But actually, the closer it gets to end of the season and the closer we are to relegation, the actual more angry I seem to get about it, which is, it's kind of that undivided love that you have for something that you don't think you care, but actually you really do. I just think at the moment it's uninspiring. Like I've said earlier, I think Cowley's are doing a means to an end. It needs... just to literally limp over the finish line. But the big issue for me is then how do you rejuvenate this fan base over before next season?
I think the thing is, Pozza, that I'm not boring with everyone with stats, but I saw one last night horrendous. Since the start of last season, there's no team lost more games in English football than Huddersfield Town. 48 defeats. I don't care who you are, the most positive guy ever or what have you. You're going to be... How many kick-ins can you get? You're just wanting it to change, aren't you? But it just seems to be different divisions, same crap, doesn't it?
I think the club as a whole, though, to be fair, needs a mentality change. I mean, already we're having interviews from chairman and manager. We're already sort of almost feeding it out to fans that we're disappointed that we've lost players. We've lost Stankovic. We've not been able to sign in. We've lost Danny Simpson down to money, and it's almost like they're almost setting fans up to. Next season, don't be expecting big things. It's, we might struggle again. And to me, it needs turning on its head. It needs going back to what it was when, there are no limits. And we can be competitive, and we can do this and we can do that. But the core club has seemingly, that works so long being Little Huddersfield Town until you actually get a little bit of success. And we got that success and they didn't change the mentality. And it's bedded in now, that mentality for me.
It's cut in pods. I mean, like last night, I thought, good. The lead headline on the website should be something like, great point. But it said, Cowley, it was a competitive game. It's like, hang on a minute, Danny. Just because we got absolutely embarrassed by Luton playing a team that, a poor Sheffield Wednesday. And
we should be after friendly, is that though?
Yeah, it's a competitive game. It's like, are we meant to be happy with that? And I feel like I'm turning into him a lot, but I hate this talk. When we've gone from no limits, Dave Wagner, strutting about, going to Leeds, knocking him about 2 wins. We were going everywhere, man, knocking noses out of joint. And now it's a competitive game, like 4 years later, and we should be happy with that. No.
I get what you're saying, and you other guys feel free to jump in and comment on this. But I think after, and Jamie especially, because obviously you work in media and stuff like that, but I think after the match, when a question's asked about that specific match, I think a manager has to give an answer that's just based on that match. And to be perfectly honest, after watching that match last night, I would say we're a competitive match. If we as fans probably invest ourselves in what's happened in 6 games before, if Cowley's been asked to comment on last night and said it were a competitive match, to me it was. Both teams probably matched each other physically, skillfully. 0-0 actually were probably a fair result. So I can see where he's coming from.
It was, but my point is, don't put it as a leading headline on the website. Put something like, we're a point near the survival or something like that. That just sells a message to me that we should be happy with that. No.
Yeah, I think sometimes media department at the club don't do us any favours with the stuff that they put out and how they choose to put out. I understand that a lot of them are, fairly young and maybe not as experienced as others. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying in there. But as for Cowley, he can only comment on, what he's asked, and maybe the club should pick up on different headlines.
Jamie, you're neutral. I might be harsh, probably. I am really, but I'm only saying how I feel.
No, I think that's
Jamie
important.
was on here. He was an adopted Huddersfield fan, so I'm not having neutral, Jamie.
Yeah, well, I look. I think there's a few things. There's a few facets to that conversation there. First and foremost, criticize me for saying this or not, but just to stick up for the media guys at Huddersfield Town, they do a good job. They do a cracking job in terms of the content that they provide and the access and the transparency at times that the club offer. I can understand the frustration in that respect, and in terms of the headline in that specific moment. Danny Cowley, the separate facet now, said after the game that he felt that it was a point gained, probably given the context of the table at this moment in time and also the performance as well. So I can understand the frustration from the headline, but there's more to it than just that. I think on another thing as well, we talk about what Danny Cowley says, and sometimes, I think I've seen a couple of things say, it's repetitive, but one thing that has to be factored into consideration, and I realise that his main message is speaking to the fans when he does the pre-match and post-match media press briefings, but also it's a message that it sends to his players as well. And I know he'll have discussions with his players in the changing room. I'm not naive to suggest otherwise, but he's referenced the fact that there's always talk amongst fans and there's talk amongst the media, and that builds up maybe tension for his players and things like that. And he has to maybe try and control what message he's been sending out to the fans that the players perceive to be as well. And he does a lot of media after games, and particularly in these testing times, he's very accommodating in that respect. He does, not only us specifically, but then he'll do a virtual press conference for the press guys. And then also he'll do the club media as well. And he is, like I say, he is very accommodating. And I understand the criticism that's being put towards the Cowley regime at Huddersfield Town right now. And some people listening to this might think, Jamie's just pro Cowley. But we get to have the conversations with Danny Cowley, before and after the mic goes on. And let me tell you that he is someone who cares about the current situation at Huddersfield Town, maybe for himself, maybe for his own professional credibility, but also because he understands what I believe. Maybe others will think differently, but I believe he understands what this club needs and actually what the fans are going through right now, because he is a football individual. We know that because he lives and breathes the game, and he has made a lot of sacrifices to take this job at Huddersfield Town. And others will say, well, he gets paid to do so. And yeah, I think they're probably fair to say that. But, he has taken quite a bit of criticism of late. And I think, a point was made earlier about the players playing with fear at this moment in time. And I think that's probably more to do with it. And I think we mentioned about, I think Brady said about having a psychologist at the club and the psychology of the players. I think someone made the reference on the post-match last night that, Danny Cowley isn't a therapist. I realise it's part of management to get the best out of his side psychologically as well. But this is a side that is had, as you've referenced, Kosi, 2 years and if not longer of really poor times at the club, and I think to put it at the Cowley's door right now is probably a step too far at this moment in time. It could remain to be seen, don't get me wrong, but I think you have to ask yourself questions in respect to, if Danny and Nicky Cowley hadn't come in when they had, would Huddersfield Town be in a fighting chance of staying in the Championship? And I asked that question, and people, I think, would probably say overwhelmingly no. If Huddersfield Town and Phil Hodgkinson had stayed with Jan Sievert, would Huddersfield Town have stayed in this Championship? I don't know. Probably not, because well, go on. Let me finish this point. What we learned very quickly is that Jan Sievert, the nicest guy going, very charming, lovely guy to speak to as well, and in my limited time with him, this squad was not fit. They weren't ready. They weren't, set to a style of play. So Cowley has enjoyed success in non-league, in League Two, and in short term in League One. And some will say, well, he's not used to this Championship season. What he's taken on as he stopped what is effectively a Sunderland at this moment in time. And I go back to that point again, and it's one of the main points I wanted to stress on this, is that if Huddersfield Town stay in the Championship, which I hope they do, I believe, and I said this point again, is the right person to take this team forward, because you look at the connections that he has in the game. Would Huddersfield Town have got Emile Smith-Rowe in January if Danny Cowley wasn't at this club? Probably not, because of the connections he has with the Premier League. And he understands what this club needs because he's lived it, he understands it, he's heard what the fans have had to say, and they've said a lot over the last few months, and rightly so as well, don't get me wrong. But you need someone who can be consistent in the job, consistent in the position, consistent with the club. And that is something that the club hasn't had in recent times, which is consistency and success in consistency. And I realise I've gone off on one there a little bit, but that's the point in terms of Cowley. And I understand the criticism that's come his way. And I understand that sometimes there isn't a plan B and there's like-for-like substitutions. And I think he'd probably accept that if you had a chat with him. But just stick with it at the moment. Don't twist just yet.
There's some cracking points made there, Jamie. So that's really good. So we appreciate that. Let us know on the live feed as well what you think to the points Jamie's made as well. on there. Kosi, let's spin this around. So I want to ask you something.
Yes, sorry, Matt. Before I was just going to back you up there, Jimmy. You went down at the start, but the end of September we'd lost 7 out of 9, and with John 2, we hadn't won a match. So when he took over, so I was just kind of backing up there with your defence of Danny Cowley, because I've said it many times. I thought we were doomed. Cheers, Matt. What's the question? Have I got
the question I was going to ask you is, so last night I was thinking, I thought the game itself, we started the first 20 minutes quite well. I thought we looked quite lively. Sheffield Wednesday started quite well. And I think Jamie's right in that the drinks break kind of killed the momentum we had going into that. I fully agree with that. And I think the same happened at Reading as well. The drinks break kind of came in. We seem to sort of start well and not so much run out of ideas, but kind of seize up a little bit. I think that's kind of what's happening is Birmingham, we got the great goal at the start, and we got the penalty, and Carlin Grant puts it in. And, we saw like a loose performance, the confidence gains, and we look so much better for getting that early goal. And I think once we don't score on top early, I think that's where we kind of start to kind of tense up a little bit. And that's what we see. But I actually thought we finished the game quite well this time as well. Toffolo was getting free down the left-hand side. He put the ball across for, I think he put the ball across for Campbell, but he definitely put a couple of decent ones in there. One thing that I was sat there looking, and I'm a guy who loves sort of sentiment in football as well, and Colin Quaner started warming up at one point, and I just had visions of him coming on. Yeah, absolutely misty eyed. Him coming on. Yeah, good. He sat there warming up. He did what I did on a Sunday when I'm a sub. He strips down and warms up and runs around in front of the manager like a madman for 90 minutes. And so Colin Quaner, would you have put him on maybe with that fresh in your mind from 3 years ago? And obviously Willett came on. Would you have gone and given Col a bit of a run?
I'm not a tactical expert, Matt, but this is one of my frustrations with the Cowleys. Just do something different. I can maybe understand it last night because we're getting a point at Sheffield Wednesday, and it's one of those, do you stick or twist? I can get it, but like at Luton Town, It's
like a mental thing though as well, mate. Do you know, like
why don't we try something different, man? Because he can give you that. Just stick him up top.
From the Quaner point though, the thing is, if you bring him on, Sheffield Wednesday will think, oh, last time he came against us, he switched the game. And I'm just wondering from a mental point of view whether, I'm not saying it's the wrong or right decision to put Colin Quaner on, because you put Colin Quaner on and he might have done completely nothing. But from a sort of sentimental and that sort of psychological reasoning, Brady, bring you in as well. Would you maybe have thrown Colin on and given him? I know it's academic, the game's gone, we've got a point, etc. But theoretically, would you maybe throw Colin on just for that sort of psychological boost, or am I just talking nonsense and that boost just doesn't exist?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm just saying, guys. I said this in the chat last night, and people kind of laughed at me. But I think Quaner's going to. I know he's not the best quality player we have, but he's going to run, he's going to work hard, and he's going to, offer something different. And I do think, given the way Town are playing at the moment, I feel like we need to win like a penalty, to win a game. It seems like we're struggling to score, and we need a bit of luck going our way. And I do think Quaner's going to run at people, isn't he? And he's a tall player, he's quite physical as well. And I do think he'd cause defenders some problems. I agree with you, Matt. I think in terms of changing it up, and same with you, Kosi, we have 5 subs at the moment, and I just felt last night the tempo just kept, the rhythm just kept getting broken up by fouls or drinks breaks or whatever. And I do feel like you've got 5 subs, change it. I know we're trying to play for a point, but at what point do you try and go for it? And I feel like, well, like you say, at least we didn't lose. But I think if you've got 5 subs, try and change it up. And I would have brought Quaner on. I know Pritchard hasn't done well since he's come back, but it's just like he could do something. And we do have some players who haven't really been given a chance, and we've got 5 subs, so I do think just switch it up. It wasn't.
That brings me nicely to the next point. Today's announcement. Pozza, come to you, a man of football ethics and what have you. I know it's only maybe for one season. To be fair, the league's got to vote for it in, but it's going to happen. 5 subs, I'm really disliking it. And I get it's player welfare, but I just feel that teams are using it for tactical things.
Breaks it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, you want to think that, because part of me thought when I heard it, it's good, then people are going to try something draconian. But as Brady just mentioned there with the Cowleys, and I get it's our situation, he's not changing it. But I don't want 5 subs. But then again, we only had 1 sub until, God, I think I might oldest one, what were it, 1980 or whatever. And I know it's for the world,
mate.
Euros, but What's your view on 5 subs? I wish they'd can it, mate, personally.
I mean, I think it's too many. I think you moved up to 7 subs on a bench to pick from 3. So are they going to move it up to more? There's still 7. It will be 5 from 7. There's no more subs on benches there, or is there? I don't even know, to be honest.
Same, yeah.
Jamie were there. He should tell us. He could see.
Racking my brain now, trying to think. I thought maybe I might be wrong on this one, so don't take my word for it. But I thought maybe 1 more player was allowed on the bench, but I might be wrong.
They're limited to 3 changes, which is good because obviously you can't break it up 5 times. I think it's in some ways. I think it's playing into the bigger teams' hands again. It's if you've got a squad like Liverpool or Man City, for example, who can make 5 changes, playing against a team with obviously not as big a squad or strength in depth, might have a bigger squad, but you see these hard fought, draws that little teams come up against big teams and they work hard. And if someone like Man City, for example, set out a team and it's not quite working, all of a sudden they can change.
They've done that tonight. Pause. Half time, 3 subs. They were 2-0 up. That's how it's going to be now, isn't it?
Yeah,
We've done the job. Change it.
Yeah, it breaks it up a little bit for me. But also on plus side of that, managers make mistakes and they send out a first 11 that it don't quite go to plan for them. So if that's a rule that they can utilise to bring 5 different players on and change it, then
Just breaking, sorry, Poz. On the live chat, I've just checked the live chat. Daz Humphries says we had 9 subs last night.
9 subs, right? Yeah, subs have obviously accommodated the extra, positional changes. But just going back to what, we were talking about earlier with regards to subs and stuff last night, and certainly thought going into that last 10 minutes, it's a sort of a bit of a risk assessment in it that you've got to do quickly. And I think with where Town are playing at the moment and there's lack of goals, I think probably we looked at it and thought we're probably more likely to concede by trying to attack than score. So maybe that's why we sort of didn't look at making a more attacking substitution. But for me, five subs is, especially second half. I remember going to watch England when I was younger, and you used to be able to make as many subs as seemingly possible. And every 10 minutes there'd just be a sub, and there were no rhythm.
It used to kill the second half of every game, didn't it, when they did that?
Don't mention it to Clive Tilsley though, Pause. He'll be crying again on his video.
I mean, the only way that they could probably get around it is maybe say, you can have 3 periods, but one's got to be in first half, one's at half time, and one's in second half, because you could theoretically leave all 3 periods into second half, which I know you can do with 3 anyway, but I don't know. It just seems a little bit overkill for player welfare when these are supposed to be athletes.
Jamie, are you weird?
I don't think there's any need for them.
Are you with a 5 subs crew, Jamie? You're the new football breed. You're the youngest, probably on out. Sexy. Let's get it changed, mate. Time out, brother.
The housewife's favourite, Jamie Rayner. Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be left as it is. Really, I can understand it for this period, but it does feel a little extensive, extending it out to the next year. I think just to echo the sentiment in respect to the bigger clubs that will do well out of this. I also think clubs that have got good academy systems in place and good youth team setups in place will benefit from it as well, because it gives them another pathway to allow those younger players to come through. And that might be a pro potentially. But I do think it will benefit other teams more so than others. And just to build on your point, Matt, I completely agree. I do think that teams will look at trying to get the extra 1%, as it were, to coin a phrase from Danny Cowley himself. And actually they will look at tactically setting up the game and try and frustrate the opposing side if they've got a narrow lead in a game. And from a spectator's point of view alone, that really is frustrating. And we've spoken a lot about VAR and the stop-start nature of that in the Premier League. It just feels like it's an added facet to that, albeit for a year. But yeah, I must admit, it does seem a little overextensive.
Jamie, can you explain this transfer window as well that's come out today? Not particularly the dates, but that interesting thing about the domestic window that's staying open. So can you explain it to us all, please? Cheers.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I must admit, it took my eye when I saw it. And basically, I'm reading from my screen now, but yeah, the obviously the normal international window opens on the 27th of July. It then closes at 11 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of October. But there's a separate agreement in place for a domestic window to be open between the Premier League and the EFL, which will run until 5 p.m. on Friday, the 16th of October. But what that means is that, for example, let's use two clubs from the Premier League, Chelsea and Liverpool. They couldn't deal with one another inside that window. A Premier League club could only deal with an EFL club. Likewise, an EFL club could only deal with a Premier League club. So you can't deal with clubs within the same EFL, so Championship League 1 and 2. Likewise, Premier League can't do inside their own league. And I think the feeling is behind that is to, once the international window is over, it gives particularly EFL clubs the opportunity to go into the loan market and look at some options to maybe bolster their squad. So I think it probably makes sense given the current climate. But again, like the 5 changes instead of 3, I wouldn't want to see it be there for the long run. But I guess it accommodates, as I say, the current situation.
Well, did you get all that, Poz?
Made copious notes, Kosi, unless it affects grassroots football, it doesn't matter. We have 6 and we just swap them every minute, so it's fine.
I got a message today from a guy who does a Brentford fanzine, and they were buzzing because they'd obviously won and put the pressure on Leeds. He says, I had to do a 2-minute voicemail why we should be hopeful that you're going to get a draw against West Brom. And I found it pretty difficult. But Matt, you obviously watched the game and they weren't up, probably not at their normal standards, but surely we can't. You never know with Town, do you? But you can't see it, can you, on Friday? Can you, Matt?
I did watch them for quite a bit against Fulham, and I found West Brom to be quite. I thought they'd frozen a little bit. I think they're feeling the pressure a little bit that Brentford have putting them under. I think when you look at, when you break everything down and you remove the managers everyone's got in this league, and you look at players, just players on paper, which obviously football's not played on paper, Fulham and West Brom have probably got the 2 best sets of players in the league, you would argue. Especially Fulham. I think Scott Parker's probably not done, I know the 4th in the league, but I don't particularly think he's done a great job there. For me, is this year's sort of Darren Moore, if you like, where it's a sentimental appointment. And if they'd gone and got a more renowned manager, I think they'd have finished top 2. But that aside, I did see sort of signs with West Brom that they were kind of tensing a little bit. But having said that, they've got players like Diangana, Pereira. They've got so many players of quality. Charlie Wopston, as we know from days of yore. They've got so many players that can corner who can just change something in a second. You could sit there and you could put in the perfect defensive display against West Brom, and in the 89th minute, Pereira can drop his shoulder, beat 3 players, put it on a plate for Charlie Austin, and you've lost the game. West Brom are a good side, and to get something against them, we would have to concentrate for the full 90. There'd be absolutely no slips. You've got to be completely on point, and maybe against the top 4, you've got to play that way. But we got a point against Brentford, and you would argue that Brentford we got 4 points against Brentford, but at home we got a point against Brentford with a 0-0, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could do the same. Absolutely. It just very much depends on nullifying those threats that West Brom have got. It depends on their rotation, whether they see us as a game that they'll pick up easy points, if you like, and maybe they'll drop, Pereira and Diangana, and maybe someone else will come in who perhaps not quite as effective as them. So it very much depends on the side West Brom put out, how at it they are. But if they're not 100%, then there's absolutely no reason why Huddersfield Town can't, if they play to their maximum capability, make it awkward for Brentford. And you never know, maybe nick something on the break. That's quite positive. Jamie's put me in a positive frame of mind with his thing on Danny Cowley earlier. So, there's absolutely no reason why that could happen. I wouldn't give it a stronger than 50% chance by any stretch, but there's no reason why Huddersfield Town can't perform well on the day. But it's likely to be a West Brom win. But I don't see why we couldn't, cause a surprise.
Really, how are we going to set up? Are we going to just like a couple of double deckers and Grant maybe get one when Toffolo gets forward at one point? I can't see the other way, but do you think he'll surprise us? You can't see it, can you? It would be much the same.
Be surprised if there's some changes for that West Brom game, because Cowley does like to throw in a bit of surprise, something a bit different now and again. I think it depends on how we start. If we look like we're up for it, I don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know, we have previously in the season before the restart, we were good. We were good against the big teams. I mean, obviously, you know, I think of that away win at Brentford, where we just, you know, well, you shithoused them, you know, and we could do that. And, you know, I agree with Matt. I mean, Bilic, the West Brom manager, was saying he feels like he's, you know, a therapist for his players at the moment. And you do wonder if, you know, Brentford look unstoppable, and you do wonder if the pressure's starting to crack to them. You know, could we take advantage of that if it doesn't go right for them? I think it you know, it depends how long we can hold them out for. I think the longer we hold them out, the more I'd feel confident about it. You know, and like I said, my prediction of Colin Kwana coming on and, you know, winning a penalty, that's that would be the dream.
So, Jamie, at Hillsborough, you're strutting about, getting your mask ready, obviously putting your blusher on your makeup, and you just have a look at your phone and you're seeing Wigan 7, 0-0. What? It was incredible. I just bumped into that game, and all the guys weren't even throwing their bodies on the line and nothing. They looked in the right trouble. How many? I think they've let in 80-odd goals, haven't they, Hull?
Unbelievable.
It's incredible, though. What a score. How can they come back from that? Surely they must be gone Hull.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? That you look at that scoreline and you think there are deeper problems than just that scoreline at that football club. It was quite. You're right to say it was quite incredible. It was quite astonishing. We were on air in our first part of the build-up and looking ahead to what would have been dedicated build-up from 7, and it was around about that 10-7, 5-7 mark where the scoreline started to filter through. And one thing that you do get with no fans in the ground is you get an immediate noise of what the press area is like, and you could hear it just behind me off mic, the astonishment of the other press guys going, it's 5, it's 6. So I was on air going, you know, I'm not going to bring you a cricket scoreline now, but it is actually 6-0 at the DW Stadium. And all of a sudden I had this almighty turnaround. It's 7. And everyone like, get it right. And yeah, I couldn't keep up with the scoreline. I've got to be honest with you. I watched the highlights today, and they were just constant goals. So I couldn't really try and take much from the build up before them to try and understand what was going on with the players. And it clearly, you know, it got to them, it overwhelmed them. And funnily enough, I'd listened to Grant McCann's post-match interview from the previous game before that scoreline. And a good colleague of ours over at BBC Radio Humberside, Burnsy, as he's well known, gave Grant McCann somewhat of a grilling in that post-match. And you know, you think, goodness me, like what is actually happening at that football club?
He's a good guy, though, Jamie. He's very honest. He's Grant McCann, isn't he?
And I was very impressed actually by the way he handled that interview. And yes, you're right. Yeah, very, very honest and upfront and accepted that things aren't good enough right now. And then that was really qualified by the scoreline yesterday. I mean, we were saying on air after that scoreline that effectively with the goal difference now, it takes Town 4 points clear of them, because you just can't really see it going that badly for Huddersfield Town in these last 2 games. Just to build on the previous point in terms of how I think the game will go this Friday, you know, to build on the optimism. But I do believe Town do step up when needed against the bigger teams at times this season. You referenced the 2 Brentford results, and there's also the Bristol City result before the break, and the win over Nottingham Forest, I think I'm right in saying, before Christmas. And also we were doing some maths before I came on the pod this evening, and actually from a Leeds perspective, West Brom have to win, because if they don't, then it would take Leeds up automatically, if I'm right in saying. That's under the proviso that Leeds win at Barnsley tomorrow evening. But I think there's more pressure on West Brom if I'm balancing the books there. And, you know, we've seen 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games for Huddersfield Town. Yes, they're not scoring goals, but they're not conceding that many at this moment in time.
Jamie, be honest. You would have loved to have done that Radio Humberside phone-in last night. And give us a bit of insight. It must, your phone-ins and stuff, because our podcasts are we get more traction when Town are not doing well. It's a bit of do you think it's just that reality of people these days?
That's exactly it, you know, and what's been really reassuring from our perspective is that, like yourselves here on the podcast and when we do the post-match as well, that people know, Huddersfield Town fans know that they've got that outlet to vent their frustration, vent their points of view and express their concerns and their opinions. And you don't need me to tell you that emotions are pretty high just after the full-time whistle goes, particularly if it hasn't gone your way. And to have that outlet to be able to have your say has been really encouraging for me since the restart, because obviously more people are at home, more people are listening, more people are watching as opposed to being in the grounds. So it's it's been really busy actually, and I suppose that's reflective of Huddersfield Town's current situation. And of course, there is no doubt there is a lot of fear and anxiety around what holds for Huddersfield Town in the immediate future. But from a broadcasting point of view and from a presenting point of view, it's been great fun having such a busy phone in and hearing so many different opinions.
Yeah, I saw you get that. There was something put out on Saturday, kind of a collaboration, if I could say, of like kind of whinging fans, and kind of got put on the Twitter. But what everyone's wanting to know, Jamie, the cricket season starts this week. There's no games, anything. Johnny will give you the Saturday off. Are you going to put your pads on, mate, and have some distance batting and bowling?
Do you know what? I was on air last night and I got the team news through, and I was selected for this weekend, which I was overwhelmed by. Thank you. And then I got a text from the assistant coach today saying that you need to get your batting sorted because you're going up the order this year. So the pressure's on. I felt that more. I honestly feel more pressure about that than going live on air. Let me tell you, I am bricking it this Saturday. Because I've not held a bat since the winter nets, obviously with everything that's been going on. So it could be horrendous. I hope they're not hoping for too much.
And we'll have to listen to your show tomorrow to find out where you're playing. You're going to have to give it away, Jimmy, because everyone, there'll be no football. Leeds, is it Sunday, Town, Friday? So everyone will be flocking to your game, mate, to watch some cricket. Pozza, any up Friday night for you? Or are you going to be tuning in? Got your clappers ready, got your Town shirt on, and where are we going to end up? 0-0 again?
Do you know what? We, as much as I think we said the other week, didn't we? We come on here after the bad games and you vent your spleen, as as Jamie said, it gives you an outlet to save you from volley cat through front window, doesn't it, and stuff like that. You should be doing that anyway, but there's always hope. You jacked it in years ago if you're a Town fan, and you know there's always that hope. You're going to lose, and then a couple of hours before the match, you say, maybe we might get something here. You never know, because if you didn't have that mentality, there's just no point, is there? You just stop following your club. But it will be tough. I personally don't think we'll get out. I think Millwall's probably his best chance, depending on how results go on Saturday, how close they are to the playoffs and stuff like that. But I think, as we've touched on, goal difference is like an extra point at the moment. Not Wigan, sorry. The bottom two play, don't they? Is it Luton and Hull play Saturday? Yeah. If that's a draw, that's in our favour. Then it goes down to the last match. If we can get a point against West Brom or Millwall, I think it'll probably we'll be crawling across that line on his hands and knees, on his elbow, army crawling across, but fingertips will probably just about get across the line. And as we've touched on, that for Danny Carley will probably be seen as job done, not in the most attractive fashion, and probably lost a lot of enthusiasm over his abilities, maybe over the past period since we've come back from lockdown. But if he's looking to further his career, it's a tick in his box on his CV, and in 6 months' time, when we forget about how we played, will fans look back and go, do you know what, actually he did a good job, as you've said, 9 games in, no wins, and if he does keep us up, you'll look back and think, yeah, all right, we're crap football and boring, but he kept us up. So there's always a bit of hope, though, Kosi.
Oh, mate, if it goes next week, everyone will be thinking 2001, Curtis Woodhouse, we'll meet again. That was a good thing about the late goal for Birmingham, and I just takes that away a little bit because, oh man, it just haunts you. Football's got that beautiful thing of just haunting you with certain things, doesn't it? I mean, obviously, remember England penalties and stuff, but
I think Stephen Chicken put a thing out, didn't he, since 93, 94. Only one team who have been 3 points above the drop zone the last 2 games have gone down, and typically it were us. So,
Yeah, we even got a point in the second to last game away at Wimbledon. I think we missed about 5 open goals as well. We were saying before we start, weren't we? Admittedly, when Charlton were winning, we were saying this smells a little bit of 2001, because we were struggling to score goals. We were quite negative, weren't we, in Lou Macari's style of play. I don't think we scored more than 1 goal in the last sort of 10 or so. I haven't got the stats in front of me. The last sort of 8, 9, 10 games, I think we'd only scored 1 maximum. And it was starting to smell a bit like that. But hopefully positivity is starting to reign through.
Positivity,
yeah.
Matt, have we got any comments before we wrap it up? Final comments?
I'll read from the bottom because we've probably gone a bit behind there. And there's one here for you, Jamie. Says from Tweak. I think Tweak's had a few beers here because he's sort of saying, "Go on, Dunny lad, mine's an IPA." Oh, I'm behind the live feed, by the way. And then he's put Jamie is bloody Schindler gorgeous, isn't he? So there's there's one for you, Jamie. Danny Bell says, "Would you rather keep the 5 subs or the drinks break?" I'd drop the drinks break out of the 2 if we can't drop both. I think that's probably a good thing. For me as well on that, guys, it depends we don't really know how next season looks yet, do we? So we don't know if it's going to be Saturday, Tuesday, and Friday, games every 3 days. So I think as soon as that sort of 3 day, for me, the 3-day gap stops, then I think that's when the 5 subs and the drinks breaks, etc., should probably go down. But Craig Blythe says Wigan will get 49 or 50 points. The dangers are if Charlton get a point against Wigan, they beat us on goal difference. If Town don't get another point and Luton play Blackburn with nothing to play for on the last day. And Tom Asquith says, I'd love to get Forestieri in with Mounier in the team. I think we would see goals galore. That's an interesting one. And Pete Collins says, we're bored because the season has gone on too long. I can't wait for it to end. It seems like years since Jan Sievert started the season. And I think I'd echo that. It does feel like it's gone on for forever, mate. And finally, I'll stop scrolling up and Ted Chippington says, guys, the game could be up. The Millwall-Cardiff situation dictates whether we get another point or not, in my opinion. I can't see 0 points being enough. Bad situation. And I think that's probably it. The big man, Neil's been in touch as well. He says he's not happy with plan A, and we don't really have a plan B either. But hopefully Jamie's passionate speech has given us all a bit more faith in the Cowleys, I hope.
Plan B, Friday 5:30, 20 bottles of lager before the game. Jamie's dulcet tones. Did somebody say, just eat?
Oh, Snoop Dogg, yeah.
Snoop Dogg, who would ever thought?
Sorry for Jamie, because we were going through permutations and league standings last night and he was struggling. So as we get close to the back end of the season, he's going to have a hell of a calculator to keep Matthew.
We'll have to see if we can get Snoop Dogg on next week for our season-ending one. See if we can
the
get
best
Snoop
thing last night, Jamie. Well, they'd just come off the pitch. Jamie were like going into his speech, and then he just got cut off for Snoop Dogg. But if you're going to lose your place, mate, in life, the dog's the man.
I didn't know that, and I'm absolutely chuffed about it. Let me tell you,
you're
absolutely right.
Jamie.
Some good maths last night as well, Jamie. There was some good. I think Matt Glennon was completely perplexed, wasn't he, by the permutations that he came up with.
He can't often keep up. You look at him; he's just a bit lost in his.
He's an hairdresser, mate. Cuts hair. That's it.
I've had a rush on notice since hairdressers open.
Honestly, you should. I could not believe it was him when I saw him. I was shocked beyond belief. I was like, "Who's this bloke with hair? It's Matty." Behind that mask.
Sticking it up and sticking it on.
That's a good idea. That pause. Yeah. Cheers. Jamie, thanks so much because you've worked overtime tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Much appreciated. And I hope you get 105 wickets on Saturday, mate, as well.
Thank you, mate.
No worries. Guys, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. And we'll be back, I think, on Saturday morning, but we'll confirm.
I forgot to say, Kosi, thanks to Magic Rock Brewing for sponsoring us as well. So thanks again to Magic Rock Brewing for being the sponsor of the podcast. And again, check out the website for free delivery on orders over £40. And check out the tap room in Home Firth. It's open and it's socially distant friendly as well. So best get that in. For the guys who sponsor us.
Those guys on radio who do terms and conditions.
I could do jingles, couldn't I? Yeah.
Right fast.
Yeah.
Jamie, I'm available for Radio Leeds for jingles if you need.
I'll have a word, mate. I'll have a word.
You've got a face for it, but anyway. Cheers, guys.
No.
See you later.